Good morning, one and all. This is Dr. Diana. Welcome to session 11 on modern software engineering. We have been revising with Unit 4 and we have been seeing some of the methods and principles we adopt in planning in agile development methodologies. We have been looking into how to create a vision and how to come up with a release plan, and we have also identified some methodologies for identifying, managing and mitigating risks. This session will be on planning for iterations. In contrast to the traditional software development approaches, the major breakthrough we have in extreme programming is the iteration. And each of these iterations we plan to deliver something to the client, and each of these iterations include a plan, design, develop, test and deploy phase. So every iteration becomes a software development by itself. So in such a scenario, iteration planning becomes a very major role in the extreme programming approach. Now, what is iteration planning? How do we plan for each of these iterations? Because all teams are going to start working in parallelly, it is difficult to plan for the iteration of each of these teams. How do we handle all of that? Now, that's what we will be looking in today's session. We stop at a predetermined unchangeable time intervals and compare reality to plan. So we are going to have a release plan that was in our hands, based on which we started with the development. At every predetermined time span, we are going to go back to our release plan and check whether we are in schedule or not. Iterations are a heartbeat of the extreme programming project. When an iteration starts, stories flow into the team as they select the most valuable stories from the release plan. So once you prioritize your stories, you start working on the most important stories at first. So those stories become your iterations. Over the course of iteration, the team branches into stories to life. By the end of the iteration, we have pumped out working, tested software for each of these stories, and we are ready to begin the cycle again. Iterations are an important safety mechanism too. Every week the team stops, looks at what it has accomplished and shares those accomplishments with its stakeholders, or in other words, we plan, design, develop, test for the done criteria and deploy at the client's space, so that the client or the stakeholder is able to get a tangible deliverable by the end of every iteration. The iteration is planned using a time box. The iterations are exactly 1 week long and have strictly defined completion times. This is a time box. Work ends at a particular time regardless of how much work you have finished. Although the iteration time box doesn't prevent problems, it reveals those problems to us, which gives us the opportunity to correct the situation and to move things forward. Now, when we look into iteration planning, we will go ahead with a schedule. The iterations follow a consistent and an unchanging schedule. The schedule includes a demonstration of the previous iteration that go up to half an hour, and you also hold a retrospective on the previous iteration, which can extend up to 1 hour. Then you plan for an iteration half an hour to 4 hours. This is very important. And then you start committing to your delivering your stories. This is very less, might take up to 5 minutes. And then you start developing your story, which will extend for a week. That's how your iteration is. That's what your iteration time is going to be. And then you prepare for a release. The preparation for release is going to take less than 10 minutes for you. So this is going to be our iteration schedule. Every week we are going to start with the same schedule, demonstrate, hold retrospective, plan for the next iteration, commit for the delivery, and then you start with the development. Then you test the done criteria before you deliver. Now, how do I complete a particular iteration? So to improve the metabolism of the agile development team, we are going to have this ceremony of celebrating every commitment that we accomplish. This allows us to openly discuss problems without pressurizing anybody to commit to your plan. Every team member is responsible for the successful delivery of the iterations story. The team may have very few new stories as a result of stakeholders' comments during the iteration demo. In general, though, the customer should have already prioritized most of the stories. And when we try to celebrate our commitment, we are not going to put pressure on anybody to commit to that. People will naturally take up this opportunity or volunteer themselves to come up with your or stick to your commitment. This is a sample iteration planning board. It shows the list of stories, and it also explains what are the tasks that have to be completed for each of these stories, and it also lists all the done criteria for most of the stories, and then it allocates people to handle some of the specific tasks. And if there is some major activity that is planned for the team, it can also be posted on the planning board. Now, this will help us identify the most important stories and tasks which we need to complete first. Now, how do we track an iteration that we have planned using the iteration planning board? Like your release plan, your iteration plan should be prominent part of your informative workspace. Put these stories and tasks on a magnetic whiteboard. When you start work on a task, take it off the whiteboard, clip it up to your workstation, mark your initials on the whiteboard so people know where the task went. And once you finish each of the tasks, put it back to the whiteboard and circle it with a green marker to indicate that it has been completed. Now, in your iteration planning board, you can see that some of the tasks have been circled, which means people have picked up those tasks and they've left their initials there. So when people look into the iteration planning board, they will know where the task currently is. If they have any queries regarding that, they'll be able to associate with you to clarify their doubts. Now, this is all about iteration planning. Iteration planning is a very major part of the extreme programming approach. So, we will be looking into a few other topics on planning in the next session. This is Dr. Diana signing off for now.